Hey, C93 Podcast. This is Mike, joined by our returning champion, man in the blue shirt, Tyson. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It is a truly, sincerely beautiful night outside. It's sunny, it's clear, and it's like 70 degrees. Beautiful.
It's the first time. It's legitimately the first time, and I think since it stopped raining, that way back in like mid June, that like I've been able to open the windows and not have to use air conditioning. It's really nice. It's really nice. I sat outside. I did some grilling today for dinner. Made some burgers and dogs for the kids. Everything was great today. I had a little sinus infection that was creeping up, but that's gone. Like everything's turning up poppy. So I think how you describe the day is perfect. And and of course, speaking of perfect, look at the man that I have all the way to my left. He's you know one of the best writers that Stop looking at me like that. Come on, I'm trying to give you some plaudits here. Um, I have to mention that we didn't record last week because we were in Austin at the MLS All
We
Stars
did
game.
technically record. I just want to point that out.
We did technically record. So I'm gonna introduce Sam, and I'm gonna try and edit the rest of that shit out. But um, Sam, how you doing, man?
Doing great. It was great how you're describing how beautiful a day it is in Vermont. It is currently raining. Don't have to use AC, so there's that's good. But yeah, just a very cloudy, gray day. Some might say very Seattle-esque, which I'm just realizing wearing my hat too. I just realized I sort of just came out as a Ballard supporter, but I want to make that clear. I'm an objective journalist, so. Um, but doing good, doing good. Very excited for this upcoming matchup. Excited to be back in Vermont, and oh boy, it is going to be beautiful chaos. There you go. Title of the pod right there, Mike. Beautiful
Beautiful
chaos.
chaos. You just nailed it right there. Listen, man. I don't think like being on a Vermont Green podcast stamps objective journalist on you. I think you're Vermont Green journalist with some other projects.
I was going to say, Sam, didn't you get called out for wearing a Vermont green anorak to a Hearts of Pine game?
Here's how it goes. So the Revolution have a policy that says you cannot wear any professional team's gear. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is Vermont? What is Vermont Green?
Semi-pro.
A pre-professional league. And so if I can wear that to the New England Revolution, why can I not wear that to a Portland Hearts of Pine game? So I really appreciate my getting up and leaving in solidarity. But I do have to say I personally do not get the big deal. I thought you were gonna point me out for wearing a Jeremy Swayman jersey. But yes, but apparently Bobby Murphy, big fan of the flower kit and Vermont Green gear. Portland Hearts of Pine. I will wear gear to a Vermont Green game if you send it to my address. It really works that easily, even though I bought Vermont gear because it's actually good.
Look, you know, I like to poke fun at you, Sam, uh, because um, because you take it so well, and you explain yourself. You explain yourself when I poke fun uh, at things that I do not understand. So, um, yeah. That said, I think it's a great day to talk about our upcoming game that we have on Saturday. Um, we can. I mean, we don't have to go through. I think this is a great preview pod. We don't have to go through the previous matches that we missed out on reviewing. Um, we beat probably the best team in the country this year in FC Motown. Um, they had the highest points per match total, and I think like to the eye watching that team play, they were easily one of the best teams in the league. Um, and then we move on to beat Lionsbridge as well, and it seems that like ever since that last match against Western Mass Pioneers, everything has been like cardiac events, right? So, so So we win in added time, right? Against Western Mass, it gives us the division. And then we go and we play FC Motown, and we have to go into extra time, right? And we score 2 goals in extra time, and then this last match against Lionsbridge, or no, that was Dolphin, right? Sorry, Lionsbridge and Dolphin. Um, Dolphin was the penalties, and just without going too deep into too deep a conversation about it, was it ever in doubt?
I'm not gonna lie. I've been kind of a Nick Herzeg hater, but he really proved me wrong on those penalties. So kudos to him.
I was gonna say, like, Nick Herseg, I kind of feel like is custom made for penalties. He's a 6'7" German. He has great technique. He has um, excellent reflexes. I feel like sometimes the times where he has been caught out and has let in goals from open play during, kind of any of the past couple of weeks has been where he maybe hasn't had the opportunity to kind of read the path of how an attacking player is kind of coming in and gonna get that shot on goal. But, in a penalty situation where it's one on one, he's going to be able to make that great clawback save with his left hand when he saved that final Dothan penalty. Like, that is what you want from a keeper, to be able to have that kind of reaction, that kind of strength in your hand to be able to make that block. Like, that is the glory that is Nicholas Herseg.
I'll admit, yeah, I'll admit that, like, having seen him that very thing the the national tournament, in the NCAA tournament, I really didn't have a doubt about anything on his end. I did have a doubt on a couple of the players who had played an ungodly amount of minutes, namely Zachary Zenge. I closed my eyes for that one, and when you're that tired, like, he's played almost every single minute possible for this team this year, right? There were a few games where he came out at 60 minutes, right? But, like, recently, he's indispensable, right? So you have to have him out there, and he's gonna give it all to you. But, like, when you're that tired, you tend to get a little sloppy. You tend to get a little, you lose your focus a little bit. You lose control. The control that you usually have, in a penalty situation like that. And he just, watching it back a few times, he just leaned back. He leaned back. He just didn't have the power and the energy to do it anymore. So, like, I did have some reservations about a couple of the players, but when Owen O'Malley stepped up, I just knew, man. I just knew, and he rolled it in.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like power shot. Like, Labordelus, like, when he hit his, like, he was definitely going up the middle, and he did not go up the middle. He hit that ball at about 3,000 miles per hour up in the top right where you can't get it.
I was gonna say
Right?
that was top bins from
Yes, that
Bordeloo.
is
That
top
was
bins. That is
beautiful.
definition. Like, I was like, he's definitely going down the middle. He's definitely going down the middle. He did not, and, like, that was a shot. That was a shot. Sam, you know, obviously you weren't there watching the game from a distance. What did you think?
I mean, yeah, I think kind of maybe similar to the home team, if you will, of obviously UVM, the Cardiac Cats, the Cardiac Catamounts. Especially this postseason, it's been very, very wrenching on the heart in terms of starting with Western Mass and then kind of all the way up now into getting into this final, which I think will probably be another game where heart rate monitors will be going off. So definitely, Herzog deserves a lot of credit for his performance. Again, what Owen O'Malley's been able to do has been great to see. Like you mentioned, you have guys like Zach Zenge who have really been putting in lots of minutes. Same probably with a guy like Musa Ndai. Also, shout out to Musa Ndai, USL League Two Defensive Player of the Year, well deserved. So kudos to him.
Finally.
But yeah, I think really it's now going to figure out, can Vermont Green really put it all together? Can they? You're at the finish line. You just have to make that one more step. And I mean, if they do this, they win the division. They won the Maple Cup and all that stuff, but win the division and then to go out and win the USL League Two championship, that would be a real statement of intent. And you really have to wonder what is left for maybe a Vermont Green to do in that league. Obviously it's great to rack up trophies, but between tickets literally selling out instantaneously and just the overall fervor there is in Vermont for soccer, it'll be interesting to see what the offseason holds. But really excited to see what happens. Definitely was following along and was glad, first, with the extra time game, but then with Penn's, glad that Vermont was able to get it done. And again, this matchup versus Ballard FC is going to be very interesting.
Yeah. So let's get into that. We'll talk about ticket sales first. It was reported that there were 77 individual instances of log-ons at 10 a.m. At 10 a.m. 7,700 looking for tickets. They were selling at, I guess, a rate of 2.5 tickets per person, right? So it's not a ticketing agency getting out there and sweeping up all the tickets before they anybody else could get them. Uh, but you do that math, and that's 19,250 tickets, not including the 1,300 that were already sold. Well, 1,375, right? From the season tickets and the 75 to 80 tickets that were available for the Ballard folks. Um, so that's a 20,000 seat stadium. And I'm not saying that we would do that every single match, but like what has happened from mid-season to now, and this is really a better thing every single year. It's like it grows. You see the beginning of the season, it's small, and then it grows, and then it's like at the end of the first season you sold out your first game and the last game of the season. Then the second season you started to sell out a number of games. Unfortunately, it rained for most of the season, and we saw a few sellouts at the end of that season. And then the third season, like almost all of the games were selling out, and you're growing and growing and growing. And now it's impossible to get a ticket, right? Unless you have the season tickets. Uh, Obviously, people swept them up, but and people did get tickets. But if this doesn't tell the city of Burlington, the community, investors, possible investors, that we need to have a soccer specific stadium or a multi-purpose stadium in the vicinity of Burlington, then I don't know what will. Now you know we want to be careful as a group of fans, or as a club in general, of growing too quickly, because if you can't sustain this success, that can hit you pretty hard, right, in the end. So I mean, I don't know what path they want to take. If they want to try and get the university to extend the amount of seats by putting bleachers on the other side, or putting some bleachers on the end, the south end near the scoreboard. But I mean, they have to seriously think about the infrastructure now, and I know they talked about it. But Tyson, what do you think about like the amount of ticket sales and what that means?
I mean, I think that in all honesty, I think that the combination of um, the UVM men's team winning a national championship last year, along with, you know, the the Green have always been very good at marketing themselves to the local community. They have made it, very upfront from the get go that this is a club by Vermonters for Vermonters. It's a hyper local team. Um, and I 100% get why they wanted to have Virtue Field and UVM be kind of their home base at the start of this, because it's a ready-made solution. They know how things are going to work. They know that UVM is going to be there for concessions. They're going to have staff there to go and man the beer lines. Now, obviously, we know that the long wait time for concessions is one of the big problems and big led to a lot of people chorusing for uh, the Green to kind of get their own stadium. But I mean, the problem remains that if the owners of this team, who admittedly basically put their life savings as they were into the pot to start this team back in 2022, you know, land is expensive. Stadiums are expensive, even if you're going for like a 5,000 seat modular stadium. Like Halifax Wanderers up in the Canadian Premier League put in a really cool like modular stadium that I think seats between like 3,500 and 5,000. And it's a cool stadium. It's kind of like right on close to the shoreline over in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
They'll be
But
playing
like,
a friendly against the Portland Hearts of Pine.
yes, they are. I believe that Benny Prego is still playing midfield for the Halifax Wanderers. Um, but you know, it's all about where are you going to put that stadium? Are you going to try and put it where the old Moran plan is on the waterfront? Yeah, that would be beautiful. But how are you going to fit 5,000 more cars or 5,000 more people clogging up the Burlington downtown that has virtually zero parking to begin with? I know that everyone's going to say, oh, there's the Bike to the Match initiatives, and more people should be using public transportation. But, if you're coming from outside of the greater Burlington area, you're going to be driving. You might be carpooling, but you're still going to be driving. Are you going to put it in that Superfund site? That's where the old canal district was, off of Pine Street, um, kind of right behind Speeder and Earls, and where the South End Get Down is. That's going to cost millions of dollars to be a viable place to put it. I've seen stuff on Reddit about going and turning, chunk of the U Mall into like a good site for that. Rutland actually kind of did something like that with the Diamond Run Mall and that hockey arena they built up
Right,
there.
right.
Um, but like realistically, in my mind, if there is a spot, a piece of land that they can do some kind of development on, I think it's going to be in probably Williston or somewhere in Essex Junction or Essex Town.
The Champlain Valley Exposition has a lot of land out back that it's just unused. Um,
Yep.
there was talk about Farpost putting a bubble out there, and it was just a little too expensive for the club. But yeah, so I mean, yes, this ticket situation is kind of a nice problem to have right now. But again, do you want to get too big too quickly? Um, so that's a question that we'll have to answer later because we have to talk about the upcoming match against who I'm being told, and I'm actually gonna name. I'm gonna check you, Tyson, on the Benny Prego. I think you meant Giorgio Probo.
Yes, I did. Thank you for that. Yes.
Um, Benny Prego is currently in
Portugal.
League Three in Portugal.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
So um, didn't mean to call you out, but I didn't want
Nope.
others to call you out. You know, post podcast. Yeah, so we are playing against what I'm being told is not royalty in Ballard FC. I call them royalty because since their inception, they have made the playoffs every single year, made deep runs, won it one year, and it have similar vibes to Vermont Green. But I am being told that Flint City Bucks, the team that they did they beat the Bucks? They beat Bucks, right?
They
Yes,
beat the Bucks in the Western Conference Final.
yes, they did. Um, are the real royalty. So I'm just gonna keep calling them royalty because you killed the king, and you become the king. Um, you pick up the sword and you become the king. So we were playing Ballard FC. Tyson, tell us a little bit about Ballard because there's you know this we generally work within our division rivals. We don't know a lot about some of these other teams. So tell us about them.
Well, they are from over in the Pacific Northwest, joined in 2022. Like you were saying, they won the league in 23. They have a women's team. They Salmon Bay. They play in the USLW. Um, Salmon Bay also have excellent kits. They're very, very nice. Um, Also, like honestly, I dig the Ballard kits. They're not as uh, flashy as some of the other ones that are kind of around in the USL2, but it's like it's a solid pinstripe. I do like a good stripes jersey. Um, and like, kind of the beige and burnt umber. That's a solid color scheme. Um, and uh, like you were saying, they have very similar vibes uh, to Vermont Green. Like they work with the Ballard Food Bank. They do work with Farmore WA, which is a organization that works with farmers in the state of Washington to kind of preserve the food systems that exist that farmers help go and create. Uh, they also coolly work with the National Nordic Museum. The National Nordic Museum is in Ballard, and I didn't know this because there were a ton of Nordic immigrants who went to the Pacific Northwest in like the late 1800s. I knew that there was a bunch of them in the Midwest because that's why we've got all those people from Sweden out in Duluth, but I didn't know about the PNW. Um, they have a supporters group called the Bridge Keepers. They're very cool. They have a weird alternative supporters group called the Bush Keepers because there is literally like this like group of bushes that are above the Ballard Stadium, and these guys like literally just like drag chairs out there and cheer on from the bushes. They had a really cool sign up there at the Western Conference game that said "Free Ballard from Sports Engine Play," and I agree with that sentiment. And we did kind of talk about like on their way to where they are. They went through, I believe, the Colorado Storm. They beat Snohomish, who is also one of the bigger Western Conference team. Then they beat Ventura County, who won the USL2 in 2022, I believe. And then, like I was saying, I was chiding you for calling Ballard royalty because they beat the Flint City Bucks, who are the real, amongst the members of USL2 royalty, four-time national champions, 11-time U.S. Open qualifiers, still the only USL or PDL team to beat an MLS team in the Open Cup. That was, of course, they beat the New England Revs in the year 2000. Sorry, Sam.
I mean, it's not really surprising, but I have to add to the Norwegian and Scandinavian heritage. Um, there is an open challenge. It has not been accepted yet. So, like I know soccer wise, and the folks from Lob Scorchers, they have a nice little mayor's bet. I put the call out there to Sounders at Heart, our friends, former SB Nation friends. I said, hey, if Vermont wins, you got to chug Vermont maple syrup, of course. And then I said, hey, what would I have to? And a lovely person said that I had to consume lutefisk, which I know it's
Ooh.
fish. I know it's probably not going to taste good, but I'm willing to
It
put
is, I believe, fermented herring.
yeah, I'm willing to put that on the line.
What?
We have not gotten confirmation from Sounders at Heart.
Excuse me,
So
excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. You're giving them the option to have something that's sweet and delicious, and the trade-off is for you to eat a fermented herring.
yeah, I mean, I don't
Like,
make the rules,
I've seen videos where they open this stuff up and immediately, like,
but
You
that's what
know,
I'm willing to put the body on the line. I'm willing to put the body on the line.
okay.
Mike, we all have our different regional delicacies.
Also, you don't have to do it, Mike. I got you in this.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate falling on that sword.
The sword I created.
Yeah, sword you created. Yeah. I don't think, you know. Let's get into talking about how Ballard plays. Um, Sam, break us down a little bit because I've talked about on the Blazing Musket podcast. I was asked a question about our about our opponents, and they play very similar to the way that we play. They're strong in the midfield. They have a similar kind of attacking presence. Like what? Just kind of take us through what we're gonna see from the offensive side of the ball with Ballard.
Yeah, like you said, think you're going to see a team play in a similar fashion, especially just really looking to not sit back, looking to kind of be in the driver's seat, which I mean, it will be very interesting to see two teams go up against one another who are kind of looking for that control of the game. Definitely think it will be interesting to see how they play out wide. If I had to give a key to the game for Vermont, probably for both teams, I think it's going to be very interesting, how the outside backs perform and overall defend. They do, Ballard FC have some quality players out wide, Richard Amon, also Joseph Dale. So I think it's really going to come down to the wing battle, I think, just because obviously Vermont Green lost Amoni Thomas. You had Nathan Simeon. You have someone like Owen O'Malley you can play. Would love to see maybe someone like Rui Aoki get a start out wide. But I think it's really going to be crucial just how they're able to perform out on the wings because, losing those players, a guy like Amoni Thomas is very big. But I think it's really going to be a battle of who is able to beat the other at their own game. And I think, it is a good sense that Vermont maybe is prepared in the sense that, especially against a Western Mass or in these other playoff games, they have gone down. But I think it's going to be very interesting in the comparison because obviously when teams play Vermont, particularly in the regular season, they're usually maybe sitting back or they're able to get a goal and sit back. But now I think they're really going to have to face a real tough team from the jump, and I think it's going to make for a very intriguing matchup.
Yeah, they also have like they have another guy in Rafael Otero who is similar in style to Zengue. He's kind of given license to kind of be one of those roaming midfielders, a number 10, somebody who's a number 10 but operates in the spaces of like a number 8. Um, can be a box to box type guy. Um, I have always said on this podcast that I love a good midfield battle. All right, I love a good midfielder. Now, Tyson, like, what are you expecting out of Vermont Green as far as the midfield goes? Because we keep seeing different iterations of a lineup in the midfield. Obviously, we're going to see Zengue, but we keep seeing like sometimes Yarda starts, right? Sometimes you have they'll put in uh, Zelafro, uh, it they match and miss. They try and match and mismatch with the defensive players. Tell us what you think we're going to see out of this because it being a final game, do you gamble with starting arguably your best midfielder, creative midfielder, in a Julian Labordelus, or do you continue that path where you're using like um, somebody like a Gabe Fernandez or something who comes in and can play midfield. He can play forward, right? Or you starting Yardo straight off the jump, for physical presence.
I mean, I sincerely think that the kind of game management that the gaffer Chris Taylor has had to do with these players, basically playing, you know, two games within 48 hours of each other, 2 weeks in a row, trying to go and save the legs on players like Labordelu, like Tatavan, like Yarda, like Zelafru. I give mad props to Zelafru and to Abby. Um, they have kind of done, over the course of the playoffs, the dog's work of going and just running the opposing midfield into the ground for the first 60 to 75 minutes of the game, and then being able to see players like Yarda and Labordelu and O'Malley come on and really try and exert that last bit of pressure to push the green into a winning position or to keep a hold of that winning position. I think that with a whole week to basically rest up, I would not be surprised at all if we saw Yarda, Labordelu, maybe even O'Malley, Rui, um, right from the word go.
That's interesting. That's super interesting, especially like you said. Like obviously the center backs are set, right? Like you're gonna see Brandon Marshall, who has been absolutely imperious, and to be honest, like just a breath of fresh air, right? Like we always knew Musa was going to be the guy, right? He was going to be the guy. We've paired him with Nate Jones. We paired him with Reed Fisher, right? Like two guys who are in MLS or on MLS, squads right now, and Reed Fisher is hopefully making his way into a first team, like uh, as a consistent first team appearances um, in Toronto. You know, and Nate Jones, who has been loaned out to the championship, right? So, like Brandon Marshall is just another guy who fits in, right? But he didn't just fit in. He thought at first he was just kind of fitting in, right? We had Victor Akum, right? Who was there initially, and Victor left for a little bit, came back, uh, and now Victor is playing left and right back, as is Rui. Rui actually was in the center back position for a second. Um, and Rui, like the depth on this team has been kind of amazing. But and we also, I love that you mentioned Abby because of the work that he did. His work off the ball has been pretty amazing since he got here, right? Brandon Parrish is another one, like, um, and we really can't discount, after the loss of Tyler Trimnell, someone like Max Kissel coming in, right? Um, so the so I think in the end, like you can give it to Chris Taylor about how he's rotated players and that kind of stuff the way he's supposed to. But then you also have to give it to the recruitment of Adam Pfeiffer. He's been like this is like his biggest year because he was finally able to focus on that recruitment piece, right? Just to focus on those guys coming in. He didn't have to do any game planning and that kind of stuff. I'm sure he probably still sticks his nose in all the time, and the gaffer probably says thank you very much for your opinions, and just takes that information and runs his team the way he wants to run it. But I think that um, you have to give a lot to Adam Pfeiffer for that recruitment and getting us such a deep team, especially when guys are coming and going and coming and going. So, you know, we can't discount anybody who's there, and maybe sitting here and trying to come up with a starting lineup is probably not the right thing to do, but like it's fun and to sit here and guess based on what we know about Ballard. We've done some deep diving, right? on Ballard. Sam, so we talked about Ballard's offense. Defensively, how are they going to set up? Are they going to sit? They're like I think you said they're not going to sit back, right? They're not going to be one of these teams who sits back and defends for 90 minutes, hoping to kick a ball over the top, right? They're going to play out on the wings and they're going to play the ball out of the back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, just to get a sense of how good they are defensively, they've only allowed more than one goal once all season. They're extremely, I would say, strong in the back, and I would maybe dare to say this season, probably better than the Green. We've kind of seen the Green slip up and, have a few multi-goal games. Maybe that is a credit to the USO Northeast Division. But I think, it could be tough for Vermont to find those moments. And when you kind of do get those moments, you have to take advantage. And I think, like you said, um, it's really going to come down to those individual moments. And when you get a chance, when a Zenga gets a chance, maybe an O'Malley gets a chance, or your strikers up top, you're going to need to convert with those. But like you said, I do think they're probably going to utilize the wide play, probably maybe have someone drop back when needed in defense. But I think these two teams are going to be looking to play the ball forward, get up the field and really kind of handle, one another. Like you said, a battle of the midfield. And I think if you're able to have someone like Bordelou play 90 minutes, you get him out from the start. Definitely think, even if that isn't the case, getting a guy like a Skeel who's very physical can maybe, ruin some of that momentum that, the midfield will be looking to create with Ballard. But I really think, I don't think it's going to be a 5-1, a 5-3 game. I think this is going to be, while open, probably on the scoreboard, quite tight. And I think it's going to come down to maybe one or two moments that is going to determine, who wins, or maybe, if there's going to be penalties again.
Let's hope there's not penalties again. So getting back defensively, like let's look at some of these matchups. So we talked about the wide play of Ballard, and not to kind of discount what Simeon has brought to the Green. After the loss of Amoni Thomas and Rui having to fill in. Obviously, you know, Rui is super quick. He's a good one-on-one defender, but he's a center back by nature, right? So, would you rather have somebody back there um, in a Nathan Simeon who seems to have not really caught up to the speed of play quite yet, having just come back a few weeks ago? Um, he seems to be getting beat off the ball a lot, and knowing that this team, Tyson, that we're going up against has some talented uh, forwards and like to play out wide. Do you think that we are going to be in for some exciting moments? In goal
I
because of
mean,
that.
I sure hope not. I think that, like, honestly, I would not be surprised at all if we saw Owen O'Malley at some point show up as either a left or a right back. Um, I think that I believe that Rui, when Rui actually played for Lionsbridge last season,
Right.
and he can play basically along the whole back line. I do think that, as an outside back, um, he is very much a, tracks back, repossesses the ball, and then kind of distributes it, uh, up to the more attacking players from there, as opposed to being, like kind of the bomber that, like Nathan Messer was, or like Amoni Thomas was. Um,
He's not a ball
he
carrying
is
fullback, right? I mean,
no. He's very much like a win the ball back, distribute the ball into the midfield or up to a winger, and just has the recovery pace to go and not get beat on a long counter or something like that. Now, I think that the question is, do you want someone like that? We've got Fernandez, who's kind of the Swiss Army knife. Like he can literally play anywhere. He's been fantastic. Um, or Owen O'Malley, when he was playing with us, he played both forward, but he also was a bombing fullback who can make those deep crosses and can be a weapon. But I will say that for a player like Tativan, he's basically playing on one and a half legs.
right.
Um, Having those kind of long crosses into the box kind of play less into his hands, maybe more into the hands of Kissel. I think it's gonna really kind of depend on what it's looking like when there are changes to be made. I think that we can kind of prognosticate as much as we want, but there are just so many different um, lineups that Chris Taylor could go and put out there. Um, like you were talking about, we just have so many different players that we have available that can play a whole bunch of different roles, who have started and played well this whole postseason. Um, there's just a bunch of different ways that we could go with this starting lineup, and I I don't know, apart from probably Zange and the two center backs, in Da and Marshall. I don't even know who else is like 100% nailed on to start.
Wow, no Herzegalov? I mean, it would be crazy to not play
Well,
him.
I mean, true. I mean, yes. Nick Herseg also probably the fourth one of those who's
Yeah.
probably nailed in to start. As much as uh, Jude Wall Michelle has been great, kind of deputizing for Herseg while he was off not tooling around at a training camp with UVM at the beginning of the season. Yeah, Herseg has kind of made that spot between the sticks his own.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it is going to be interesting. Personally, probably would. It's kind of like, you have the dueling minds, like, oh, maybe you get Simeon out there for 45, 60, then you bring someone else on, or do you just kind of go with the mindset of having someone like a Fernandez, Hall, or, Rui or Owen O'Malley, just go from the jump, but then the question is, what do you do off the bench? So, it's definitely a good problem to have in the sense that Vermont has a lot of quality players, but it is going to be interesting to see just how the rest of the lineup does look. And I think, again, beyond just those moments, for someone like Chris Taylor, the changes that he makes could make or break, the performance, and getting the right guy on at the right time could mean a difference between lifting a trophy or not. So it's definitely going to be interesting, but I do think that Chris Taylor has a lot of tools at his disposal, and I think it could also kind of get easy to maybe get in your own head. But there is just a wealth of Vermont players, hopefully, again, rested up after this past week, and hopefully are able to go more minutes than they have previously, because they're going to need every single one of those guys to make an impact, and hopefully to get a trophy.
Yeah, I think that in the end, you know, Vermont has to take advantage of the spaces that are open through the middle, because of the way that Bauer likes to defend. Um, they they run, what did we say, a 4-4-3, offensively, or 4-3-3, sorry, offensively. Um, and then they tend to kind of bring back a defensive midfielder because those back four generally don't close down guys that are kind of roaming around the box. I would like to see Vermont in this has not been the hallmark of Vermont this season, especially this season and even last season. The hallmark of Vermont has always kind of been cross a million balls into the box and see what happens. We don't necessarily have that big, strong up top striker anymore who's gonna control the box. So I I have been saying it all year. I wanted to see Vermont take advantage of that area around the top of the box, especially with a team like Ballard, who when pressed into a defensive position by a quick moving team can be vulnerable up there because they generally don't close guys down. They're 1v1 defenders. They have a hard time closing guys down around that area. Ventura was able to have a lot of joy in that area, right? Um, and it seems that Ballard just seems to outlast people, and it's that's very much a Vermont, uh, especially this team is to kind of outlast people, play physical, work work the defenders until they just can't defend anymore. Um, we just wear people down. We whittle away and whittle away and whittle away, and you see you've seen throughout this playoff run, especially that like at the end of games, the defenders just don't want to defend anymore because Vermont just keeps coming at them in waves and waves and waves, and it's usually in the last 15 minutes of the game where it just happens. Um, I don't know that's going to happen this game. Like you said, it's probably going to be a lot of back and forth action. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff happening, but the way that both of these teams defend, it could be very, very low scoring. So, with that, like, I'm looking forward to this. We've heard a lot about Ballard over the years, um, and I feel like this is the time for Vermont to prove it. They have the team to do it. This is, I think, is probably the most talented team that we've had, just based on depth. I think the second year team might have been more talented, but they unfortunately had some bad luck, with some players leaving. We had players that season like Daniel Pacella, Rodri came in that season. Gavok Diarbi and D'Agostini came and took over for Diarbi, and like there were a lot of great players. Zach Zenge's first season, like Zach was electric that season too. That team was super super talented. Um, but I think for my money, this might be the most talented team that we've had, just based on the depth and the amount of rotation that we're able to use, and the fact that Coach Taylor has not used the same lineup twice. Like that's really a testament to the recruitment, and it's a testament to the players and how they keep themselves healthy and ready to go. Um, we might see a bunch of different guys on the bench. You never know what you're going to see. We have players available, so you never know who you're going to see. Um, then maybe that's the beauty of a Chris Taylor coached USL 2 team.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also too like you just, to talk about the talent. I mean, I remember when they had that transfer deadline day, which transfer deadline days aren't really usually a thing in USL League Two, but when they brought in Benny Prego and added to the roster, I'm like, I don't know, man. I think if they don't win it this year, they might never. Obviously, Benny Prego isn't here, but you still have some of that talent that Vermont's been able to continue to bring in, and like you said, complete credit to Adam Pfeiffer being able to continually recruit, not maybe have to worry as much about a game plan, and maybe continue to keep an eye on players, be in contact with players to see if they can come in. And like you said, I also think, if there's a moment where a Zenge or a Labordalu is able to send in a shot from distance and, maybe catch a goalkeeper off guard, that could be the difference. And I think having someone like a Tati Van, who's quite composed on the ball, obviously with his stature, he isn't like a Yaniv Bazzini where he can really play some really strong hold-up play. But if he is playing back to goal, he has the confidence with his feet to maybe create some moments there. So again, I mean, I'm very intrigued to see how the match plays out. It's going to be amazing to have kind of the USL League Two dignitaries there, and to really just kind of showcase all that Vermont has done to grow soccer in the community, but also to go up against a team like Ballard. Uh, Definitely going to be a match that whether you're there in person or watching at home, you're not going to want to miss it. And I'm very glad that the Revolution do not play this week, because I would have had to make a very tough decision, and now I don't.
And speaking of back to goal, the player that Tatovan really reminds me of is kind of uh, height of his powers, Harry Kane. He will go deep to collect the ball. He can distribute. He can make some excellent passes. He has a wicked shot on him. You know, Tatovan can also, like Sam said, he doesn't have the stature of a Trimnell, but he's got some ups. He can go and go up and head a ball if he has to. Um, but unlike Harry Kane, he's not going to low bridge someone else who went up for a header in midfield. So I think we got the good end of that deal.
I think Tyson is a little bit salty, but also make it known that Tyson did say that Harry Kane. He didn't say it in as many words, but he did say that Harry Kane is not necessarily a tap-in merchant. So,
No,
congrats
Harry
to you
Kane's a
for.
Harry Kane's a fantastic football player. He's
Uh,
great.
I have to wonder if Tyson thinks he's a 4 out of 5 or maybe a 3 out of 5. I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
I'll take him over any of the goddamn players that West Ham have had over the past 20 years. I think there was something that like West Ham has had something like uh, 35 different strikers over the past 15 years. Like they had all of them have been garbage. Full Krug, he's broken. There's any kind of, oh my god.
It's another whole podcast, I think.
Oh my god, it just makes
We'll
me
We
do
become a
a-
West Ham podcast now. We're
Makes me
becoming a
so-
West Ham
We're turned
podcast.
into a West Ham podcast. You know, um, yeah. So I think we're coming up on time here, boys. So I do want to mention we are a podcast that is supported by the Blazing Musket. The Blazing Musket is a New England soccer website. Um, it features our very own Vermont Green, um, Hartford Athletic, a little bit for what it's worth. Portland Hearts of Pine, all the way up through the Revs. Rhode Island FC. I mean, it supports podcasters like us, um, like the folks in Portland, like the folks in Rhode Island, Raising Anchor, and they do a lot of great writing. They do have a lot of extra content on there. They have the Blazing Musket podcast, which you can hear my silly voice on once a month. That's a New England soccer roundtable that's hosted by Tom Pinzone, and you know, there's a lot of great things. And if you do, and if you can afford it, you can subscribe to the paid tier. That will get you a lot of extra content, including if you want to look at my stupid face, uh, you get the video version of the Blazing Musket podcast. So, um, you know, there's a lot of great stuff there. So if you can afford it, please go out there, subscribe, and do their paid tier, because the work that they do is really second to none in New England soccer. Um, Other than that, I just want to say to sign off here that like this has been a great season. We do have a special guest coming up. Uh, Hopefully next week. We're gonna nail it down on Saturday at the game. So we'll have a special guest on, and we'll talk about the world of USL 2, and maybe even into the future, and maybe see what the future holds for Vermont Green. Outside of that, Chris Taylor has promised. I think we had him on early in the season or preseason, and he has promised that when we win it, he will come back on, and we'll break down the season with Chris Taylor. Maybe have a couple players on. So we're not done yet. We have a few more episodes that we're going to do here. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. A lot of good stuff coming from United in Green.
Yeah, and I will give a quick plug. Blazing Musket will be in Burlington, Vermont for the final. I will not be writing the recap because I have been told there will likely be a lot more press than usual, so I do not have any space. I will be grabbing the lovely social media content on the field. But we'll also have all your stories that come out from that match. So if you, like Mike said, if you can just sign up for a 3 subscriber, that would be great. But again, cannot wait for Saturday. Cannot come soon enough. And I can't get to Virtue Field soon enough.
Tyson, any last words?
I'm just really fucking excited. It's gonna be a very good game. I think that that Sam is right. It is going to be I think it's going to be a very intense game. I think it is going to be low scoring. It would not surprise me if this game goes into extra time or onto penalties. These are two teams that play in a very similar style. Um, it's going to be it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a really good game, and up the fucking green.
Up the green.